Hi, I'm Lindsay Herman from Cake and Commerce, and today I'm going to show you some of my favorite gluten-free flours that I use in combination to replace regular flour in recipes. Gluten-free flours, unlike regular flour, just don't have the same chemical properties. It's different proteins, carbohydrates, starch, so you need to combine them together to get a really desirable product that doesn't have a strange aftertaste. So I use a different combination of different things, and I have some of them right here. This is millet flour. It's pretty new to me. It's yellowish in color. It's nice for lightening up some of the other darker grains like a dark buckwheat or teff flour, which I'll talk about. It's kind of grainy, so you don't use it for the majority of your flour mix. What I have next to it is buckwheat. This is light buckwheat, which has a less strong flavor than regular buckwheat. Most buckwheat is about a shade darker. And has a sort of stronger grassy flavor. This buckwheat is a little lighter and doesn't make baked goods quite as dark. Next to it I have sweet brown rice flour. I really like sweet brown rice flour. This stuff is actually milled pretty finely. One of the issues with rice flour in general is that the starch granules are really big and they're really crunchy and they can make your baked goods taste like sand. So finding a finely milled rice product is a big deal. And sweet brown rice flour usually is ground finely. I don't use conventional white rice flour, mostly because it doesn't really add much to the baked good and it does taste really sandy. So if I do ever use it, I have a glutinous rice flour. I only use a very small amount. Next I have oat flour. Oat flour is iffy. Some folks with gluten intolerance or celiac don't use oat flour in any of their cooking. There is certified gluten-free oat flour. It's expensive. Oat flour gets gummy. So again, you don't want it to be the bulk of your baked good or it'll be gummy. It won't act at all like regular flour. It won't be fluffy and light. So if you're going to use oat flour at all, keep it very, very small. Next I have tapioca flour. And this is actually one of my favorite starches to use. Tapioca starch is a great flour to use to lighten up a mix that has other heavier whole grains in it, like the buckwheats, millet, or teff. I don't use tapioca as the bulk of my baking mix because it is too gummy and too starchy, but it does do a great job in concert with other flours. Next I have teff. Now teff, it's pretty finely milled. It's one of the tiniest grains available. They're growing it in the United States now. It's dark and it's a little pricey, but its properties are pretty similar to wheat flour. You don't use it one for one. Again, you need a little more starch in it. It needs some of the gumminess that you get when you add in a little bit of tapioca. It needs to be balanced out. It's got a kind of heavy, unnuanced, nutty flavor, which I find a little dominant in a baked good, so it does need to be balanced out by other kinds of flours. This is glutinous rice flour, and this I buy at the Asian market, so this may not be something that everybody wants to use. There is a possibility of cross-contamination, which for people who are pretty strict about their wheat does present a problem. For those who don't have an allergy, glutinous rice flour is great to use. Now, there's no guarantee that there is or is not any cross-contamination. It's just a possible risk because it doesn't come from a certified plant, but it is really fine. It's not at all like the rice flours that you find, and it is a little more starchy. So it's a nice ingredient. It lightens up your flour mix. Here's garbanzo flour. Now, I used to really love garbanzo flour. It's very high in protein, but it's got a real beany flavor. And if you don't mind beany flavor, it's great. I think it works better in savory baked goods rather than sweet, just because that beany flavor is really pretty pronounced. If you're going to use it at all, keep your percentage small. Here is potato starch. I actually don't use potato starch in my baking, and part of the reason is I don't really like the flavor. And I just, to me it's just got this sort of potato-y thing going on, which I can taste through the baked good. I can taste through chocolate. I can taste through banana. So I don't use it very much in my cooking, but it is a really good starch to use. And the last thing I want to show you is this, and this is guar gum. This is derived from a bean, and it helps give structure to your flour mix and your baked good. So about a teaspoon per cup of your flour mix will give extra body and structure to anything that you decide to make with it. Now, you don't want to use it in everything. Any recipe that's supposed to be short, which means has a lot of fat in it, flaky, anything that has a lot of volume, like banana bread, does not need guar gum. But there are recipes that do. My pie crust, for example, works really well with a little bit of guar gum added to it. There's also xanthan gum, which you can use, but that's derived from corn, so I don't have it here because I generally avoid corn in my baking. Now, if you want to see more examples of how these different flours can be combined, you can check out my other recipes on How To Heroes. I have a banana bread recipe that features different ratios of these different flours and does feature teff, as well as a chocolate chip cookie recipe, which I hope you'll enjoy.